Well, good afternoon, guys. It is September 3rd, and I am in Dimple Dell Regional Park. The last time I was here, it was springtime, so I'm sure we'll see a lot of different plants. A lot of the same ones, too, but certainly a few things that we wouldn't really get a good view of earlier, such as all of this Helianthus annuus. This will be a common sunflower, more on that later. So let's just jump in and see what we happen upon today. Now, as before, this is a habitat dominated by a lot of this Quercus gambellii, the gambelic, which I talk about so much. But now much more visible is the Sakali cereale grass. It's just a feral cereal rye. You can see a close-up of the seed head here. Looks sort of like Medusa head grass, though I don't think that's really what it is. Maybe only a little bit. You can actually eat this stuff, but you gotta make sure you don't get any of the awns down your throat, because you will choke on them and it will be very unpleasant, especially if you're in the middle of a date. I'm not bringing it up for any particular reason, but yeah, fortunately it's not a native plant, so I don't like it around here so much, but I suppose there's worse things that could be growing here, like cheatgrass, which I'm sure I'll find some of, like right here. Okay, stand corrected. Bromus tectorum. It's known as the worst plant in existence. Maybe I shouldn't be so harsh on it. I've never gotten to enjoy it in its native habitat, but it's an incredibly unpleasant plant around here. That even if you don't care about like invasive species at all, it's just an annoying thing that gets stuck in your shoes if you have to walk through it. You can completely wreck like a pair of socks and shoes, which I've done before walking through it just for a little bit. It's incredible how irritating they are. And that's, again, ignoring the fact that it's one of the worst invasives in the western United States. Hope I'm not shaking this too much. I'm a little rusty. I haven't done too much filming lately, especially of this type of video, but I hope I'm going to try my best here. Another plant that last time we saw wasn't in full leaf. This is Rhus trilobata. It's known as the skunk bush sumac, or maybe aromatic sumac. Its other scientific name is Rhus aromatica. Yes, there are two. Some people consider them to be separate subspecies, or separate species even, but I have no clue how to tell them apart. I just know it's two names for basically the same plant. Either way, what's interesting about this is that unlike most Rhuses, it is trifoliate instead of pinnately compound. Well, I guess you can still call it pinnately compound, but most Rhuses have considerably more leaflets. Well, if you only have one, like the Rhus integrifolia I talked about in California, that was a real classic. I can see those things again. You can really see just how dry the landscape is by September around here. All the grass is yellow. It's only hardy shrubs that are retaining their color, because everything else is going dormant. Now this is the time of year when the temperatures start to get cool again that we seem to get a lot of yellow Asteraceae starting to bloom during the really last big push for flowers. This is, I believe, Heterotheca villosa, though some studies can believe this has actually been broken up. Like, I think there's a Heterotheca zionus, or zionensis, something like that. I really need to look it up. This is something I've read from a YouTube comment on one of my videos. But very common, widespread member of Asteraceae, Heterotheca villosus, or villosa. And of course, it's yellow and blooming in the very late summer, early autumn. See quite a few other plants that have this habit as we go on. Taking this high road that I didn't take last time. Some great views of the rest of the park and even across the valley. Curse this low dynamic range. But we get a lot of this Persia tridentata up here. That's another classic native. The most important shrubs of the Mountain West, especially in the drier portions. Let's take a close look. It's a member of the rose family. Its leaves sort of look like that. No relation to Artemisia tridentata, even though they have leaves that are similarly three-tubed, or not really three-tubed in quite the same way, if you know what the leaves of Artemisia tridentata look like. It's a very hardy shrub in these parts. This is a steep hill. It's nice to just get a good hiking sometimes. I see all the, some of the trees. I think it's got to be the Acer granditatum on the mountains is turning color. It's been a very dry summer, even though it's rained fairly recently. Quite heavy, just like last week actually. But it's hard to make up for 2 months of almost continuous almost continuous drought. Hope my borderline inability to talk isn't too big a barrier to you guys watching and enjoying my videos. This sand has been atrocious to walk through. I keep flicking it into my socks, it's just terrible. I'm positive this is mostly derived from glacial deposits, mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon and Bell's Canyon, which of course were carved out by glaciers. And that ground down a lot of this quartz monzonite to this fine powdery sand. But it's just so irritating to walk through. Hopefully it comes to an end in a second. Most of the plants I see growing on it are the same see growing everywhere else here, but I think most of it's derived from sand. It's just that this area is like a bare trail. We're at the other side of Dimple Dell now, the western side. There's not a whole lot of new sights here, but going for some more forested areas in the actual dell itself as I head back. So hopefully I can find some more cool stuff there. Some signs for you. Yeah, I don't really see any of these two species in the actual dell itself. But not far from here, certainly. That's what I was talking about earlier. See what I mean? Some people consider this a variety or subspecies of Aromatica and Trilobata. It may not be the same thing essentially, but I've not seen really the evidence to make that determination. But then again, I'm one of the biggest splitters ever. Not the biggest, but I do believe in splitting for the most part, so maybe I should be a little more keen on the claims that they're two separate species. But I just don't even know what the difference between the two is, unlike most of the other species I have an idea of. Okay, it's a Tragus, I guess, or Salsola tragus, the common tumbleweed. Again, not native. This is native to the steppes of Eurasia. Remember, Amaranthaceae. Yeah, look. One we can tell apart from almost any other plant, it's got this like candy cane stem. Very stripy. And right now it's quite prickly to the touch, so it must be getting ready to dry up, blow away, and disperse its seeds everywhere. Darn shame. Okay, let's carry on. Now I head back. Thankfully it's not super sandy here. It's ever shallow and rocky as well, so I'm not kicking sand in my shoes again. At least not yet. It's really impressive how green the Gambler is still. It's really, really adapted to these dry conditions. And this summer, I said before, was, I'd say, punishingly dry. We got a little bit of rain between like July and the end of August. I mean the beginning of July, so it's almost like a 2-month period where we got no rain. And to be frank, June and May were not particularly rainy either, so it's been a tough time for precipitation this summer. But nevertheless, they are completely green still, almost everywhere I go. Not even wilting a little bit. I just went to 500 ISO, that's a little better. Now, aside from all the cereal rye and other invasive grasses, which would probably be replaced with native grasses, I imagine this habitat is not too dissimilar to what had been found here before the pioneers came in what was it, 1847? I can't even remember. But yeah, it's these mixed area of open fields and groves of gamba oak and other larger shrubs and small trees. Speaking of yellow wildflowers, I said I was going to talk about this later. This is Helianthus annuus. I think the best name for it would be the common sunflower. It is the same species of sunflower used as a crop and as a garden ornamental, though it looks quite a bit different compared to those ones. See, although these ones do have a single head, take a look at this one. You can see it's got several flowering capitulum, while most cultivated ones, of course, have one single large head with much larger seeds. You can see they bloom from inside or from outside to in. But yeah, this is actually one of the few widespread important crops globally that can be found naturally in the state. Some species of squash and other gourds can. And it was originally domesticated by Native Americans in the eastern United States, part of the Eastern Agriculture Complex, which included a few other species such as some cultivated pig's foot, as well as like I think a little barley and a few other, like some squashes, a few plants that for the most part fell out of favor once maize from Central America was moved north to the area. It was just such a good crop. It replaced almost all the other crops being grown there, with the exception of a few such as the sunflower. These days I think it's mostly grown in Ukraine and Russia. Well, of course it's grown in a few places, but those are the biggest yield per nation, so to speak, countries. I want to make a whole video about it. I want to make a whole series of videos on different crops or maybe other garden ornamentals and where they originally came from. And that's honestly probably one of the few species I could actually do just by staying in Utah, because most of the species I'd have to travel to like China or the Middle East or like Mexico to really tell you about where the wild origins of our most common crops are. But that one happens to grow right here. It wasn't quite domesticated here, but it is found here. I think it'd be a cool video series. It just would be only very seldomly updated, unfortunately. Especially when it can be in Australia for about a year, 2 years. I should mention that I talked about it a little bit before, but now it's almost certainly going to happen. Probably around February, March next year, I'm going to be going to Australia to do some work. And I'll continue to make videos while I'm there, but obviously the species that will be featured and the habitats I'll talk about will be very, very different. It's been a long time coming. I hope you guys don't mind, because I hope you guys aren't just here for Utah plants or California plants, but are willing to see videos of plants and wild habitats in other parts of the world. And Australia is a very fine place for botany. Trust me on that. It's a really, really cool place. I'm so excited to look, get a feel for the plants there and make videos about what can be found there. But I do worry that I may not be so appreciated by my audience, but I mean, it's not like I'll never come back to the United States. I certainly will, and make some more videos here and elsewhere. I'd love to go back to California and do that, since so many of you guys were appreciative of it. I can tell California is a great place to make these kind of videos, because it's not just a much larger population and much more cool plants. There is, I think, an audience that's generally much more appreciative of native plants in California than in Utah. Not that you guys don't like native plants here, but I think it's just a whole different game there. But yeah, I'll try and make some backup videos so you guys can get some extra content while I'm in Australia. And I'll maybe try to travel a couple places like nearby while I'm there. Maybe go to Samoa and make some videos there. But while I do that, I really hope you guys like the content I make there. And I really hope you are, just continue to watch and support my channel, because I'm really a bit shocked at how much support I've gotten. I've actually gotten 250 subscribers recently. Granted, the last maybe 6 of those were, I'm a little bit suspicious. I think I'm just always paranoid that any subscriber I get is a bot secretly, and it's going to be taken away from me in an instant. But I guess I have to maybe just believe sometimes I'm not making terrible content. So I'm sure this part of the video is very boring to you guys, but I just want to give an update on what's going on with me, what the future of this channel might hold. If it was an upcoming project and a major change in setting for a while before my videos are filmed. Some dogs barking. I know there's coyotes in this park. That'd be really cool if we found some here, but I kind of doubt it, to be honest. Now this is what I'm talking about, the sunflowers. Look how tall they are and how many flowers they got. This might not be so odd for ornamental sunflowers, but it's certainly a bit different from the ones you see in cultivation for their sunflower seeds and oil. Just look at how nice that flower is. This plant is over 6 foot tall. Got a very rough stem. You can probably see it from here, but if I zoom in it'll be especially obvious. That's why it's so rough. These prickly hairs, probably not going to stab you, but they're not exactly the funnest thing to rub your fingers up and down. These may have been planted a little bit, but they certainly don't seem that odd for the wild types, I guess. Actually, maybe I could be totally wrong on that, to be honest, but you know what I mean. Speaking of more yellow Asteraceae, we got some Ericameria nauseosa. Oh god, smelling just like the name implies. It smells like old sweaty socks. It's disgusting. But it's a good native plant, so it can be forgiven for that. Okay, I might wrap up this video here. I'm kind of running out of things to talk about. So thanks for watching and see you next time, I guess.